welcome back to the second Metal Inquisition interview. Today we have Dominic Citrino from GraveDanger. Now, you guys just released a new music video and song titled Embrace the Chaos, and how did that go?
It went great. We had a great time filming and shooting it. I actually took it upon myself to film and direct the music video this time, as well as
Mhm.
edit the music video. And I had a real blast doing it. It was a good experience for me. And moving forward, I'm probably going to be shooting the upcoming future Grave Danger music videos, which I'm happy about.
Nice, nice. And so what made you decide to direct and produce it yourself as opposed to going with a production studio like I know you have on a couple of the past ones?
Well, the song has been done since August of 2024, and
Hmm.
we've had a lot of fans waiting for the release to drop for that. So I've had a lot of time to like internalize. I do tend to think like a director in my own mind. So we kind of went for like a James Cameron, like 1984 Terminator type of vibe with
Yeah,
like a gritty, foggy alleyway with like a blue VHS kind of hue, like real 80s. Um, so I think it kind of worked out really good on that. And we've gotten nothing but good feedback on it so far. So we're totally
nice.
stoked.
Yeah, you guys should definitely, with the type of lyrical themes and visuals that you've used before, you should go for your next one, like a They Live type of thing would be cool with the Grave Danger
Like a
theme.
zombie vibe or something. Yeah.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And
It's more like, yeah, it's more like thrash metal. I mean, a lot of thrash metal bands are right about
yeah,
zombies.
yeah,
That's cool. I like that stuff. I mean, you know how we write about like conspiracy stuff and
yeah.
try to like, wake people up to the like real issues in the world and stuff like that. But, you know, probably gonna have our next song is gonna be like a wasteland type of vibe. I may call
Like
the
Mad
song like,
Max?
yeah, like Mad Max. It may be called like Wasteland Warriors or something fun like that. I think it'll be a good catchy song. I'm just working on writing like short and catchy songs nowadays. It's a lot less work on me since I'm
Yeah.
basically doing everything, including like the drums and the bass and everything. Well, on
Yeah,
most of the songs I do.
yeah, exactly. And I was gonna ask, your approach to songwriting and recording, you seem to, like you just said, do everything yourself. Is there a reason for that as opposed to the more traditional method of going into a studio with like a full band?
Well, our fans really appreciate us, and they want us to cut more music and drop new tunes. So
Hmm.
just to get the song out quicker, since I
Yeah.
do everything basically from home, because of my drummer and my bass players' work schedules, they work midday to night shifts. It's been a little harder to meet up and practice, and also to get them out here to record. So I do tend to just write everything and record their parts for them, and then I'll just go ahead and I'll teach them the songs so we can perform them live. We're probably going to be introducing and playing our new single "Embrace the Chaos" at our Fresno gig on 9/6 for the very first time. So we're looking forward to that.
Nice. And that's
And we're going to be playing with frankly, some awesome heavy metal bands. So
nice.
we're
Nice.
stoked
Yeah,
on
that
that.
definitely seems like a really good gig. So, one thing I was going to ask, it seems like Grave Danger's direction is more towards like producing videos in singles rather than like a full-length album. Do you still have any plans to do a full-length album in the future, like on vinyl or CD? I know I've seen a lot of people say they would
Um,
want a Grave Danger CD.
I do, but just on my own here is an insane amount of work for me. We already
Mhm.
have enough songs available to where we could come out with a full length. I mean, we have something like 25 songs already available.
Yeah.
But as far as like recording and doing a completely new album, I do want to do it. It's on my agenda. But
Mhm.
as of now, it's not something that I have time to take on. I would probably go to a studio. In that case, I would not do it from home,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that leads me on to the next question. So what are the overall influences for Grave Danger? I know you like a lot of like 80s US power metal, which is pretty apparent from the music, but I figure it's best to ask you yourself.
Grave Danger's influences are endless. I
Hmm.
would say any 80s or early 90s underground heavy metal, power metal, speed metal, or rock and roll type band, whether it's Queensryche, Grim Reaper, Crimson Glory, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, um, Metal Church, and
Hmm.
even deeper than that, even more underground, obscure stuff than that. I mean, I know you know that
Yeah,
I'm really into the obscure stuff, Dylan, but those are just some of the bands that I think that some people would recognize just if I
for
had said
sure.
them. So I just mentioned those bands.
And because, part of the reason why GraveDanger's gotten, its reputation is because of your fairly unique vocal style, which many people appreciate. And who are your vocal influences?
It's kind of tough, man. I'd say I feel like I have my own style,
Hmm.
but obviously Midnight from Crimson Glory,
Yeah.
Jeff Tate from Queensryche, David Wayne from Metal Church, Carl Albert from Vicious Rumors.
Hmm.
It just the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Um, my voice tends to change on a day-to-day basis. Like if I'm recording, like I did an Iron Maiden cover recently, and I feel like I really did sound like Bruce Dickinson there for a minute.
Hmm.
Just because of the way my voice was that day. Like I can't
Yeah.
even explain it, but it just changes. Like people tell me, oh, you sound like Merciful Fate, you sound like King Diamond, he sounds like Metal Church, oh, he sounds like Crimson Glory, he sounds like Bruce Dickinson, blah blah blah. It's just like whatever my voice does for that day is what my voice does. And
Yeah.
lately, I've been trying to like add a little bit more raspiness to my vocals along with the vibrato, kind of like
Yeah.
um, Steve Grimmett from Grim Reaper. I think he has a really amazing and unique voice. Not a
Yeah.
lot of guys could sing like him, especially like back in the 80s. Like he had like a real unique voice.
You guys have played with, I believe, the Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper, right?
Yes, we have
Yeah, and you also played with the death metal band Possessed and the new wave British heavy metal band Satan, among others.
Hammerfall,
Hmm.
um, Death Angel twice. We played with Death Angel twice, and we played with Possessed twice.
Nice.
Ruthless, thrash metal
Hmm.
band Ruthless from the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah, we've
Cool.
had some fun out there. It's been fun. We're
Yeah.
going like almost 11 years strong with GraveDanger so far. Just hit our 10-year anniversary back
Nice.
in September, I believe.
Nice. So regarding the history of Grave Danger, like I know you were in a thrash band before that, and so what made you decide to evolve doing the more like heavy slash power metal style?
Well, I've always wanted to do traditional heavy metal, but back in like 2007, when I was playing thrash metal, there was basically no heavy metal bands around anywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing the falsettos. And I would just listen to like Rob Halford and Judas Priest like almost every day. And I would just try to copy him. And
Hmm.
eventually, like I started developing that voice, because I used to sing like Chuck Billy or Steve Souza from Exodus. People used to come up to me and say, "Hey, you look like Paul Bailoff, man." And I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Check out my thrash band, Oxidation, blah, blah, blah." Yeah,
Hmm.
and I did the thrash thing for years, and I was pretty much the only one in the scene that was doing the falsettos back then. And there was a lot of like new wave thrash metal bands that were coming out that were really good. And there was a really good scene that lasted like I'm gonna say 7 years before it kind of like died out. It's still going on, but it's just not as quite as big as it was
Yeah.
like it was here back in like 2009 and stuff. The LA scene was crazy back then. Like I can remember seeing Exhumer from Germany. It was a blast, dude. It was like the 80s and shit, but it's just not like that anymore.
So like where do you think the future of heavy metal is headed?
I think it's headed in the right direction. There's,
Hmm.
you know, countless like thousands of new wave of British heavy metal, bands coming out everywhere.
Yeah.
They're coming out in, places like Kentucky where you're from. They're coming from
Hmm.
California now. There's a lot of bands in California coming out. There's a lot of bands in Europe coming out, all over
Yeah.
Europe. Portugal, Spain, Sweden, you know, everywhere. Italy. I know some Italian metalheads myself.
Yeah.
I think it's in the right. I think metal's in the right direction, but the problem is the music industry is corrupt.
Yeah.
Obviously, there hasn't been a metal band to go mainstream and quote make it since Metallica. It's all these older guys in the '80s. Those are the guys that made it, and those are the guys that get paid the
Hmm.
big money.
Yeah.
Guys like Testament and Exodus and you know Metallica and Hammerfall and all these guys that made it back in the day. Those are the guys that uh, they're the ones that made it. But
For sure.
until we see a change in the music industry, we're all going to just kind of be, you know, paying our own way to go on tour and, having to sell records and t-shirts to make up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And on that note, DIY or label, like which do you prefer?
I prefer both. I think
Yeah.
the labels can only do so much in modern times.
Hmm.
For me personally, I like them because they press your music for you. They do promo, they advertise you and all that.
Yeah.
That's very important for a band. But also, doing that promotion on your own is fine, and having your own label is fine. Like I know guys, some pretty credible musicians that made their band into a corporation. They sell their own records, they produce their own records, they sell their own merch, and produce their own merch. And either way, I have full support for both ways on that.
Yeah, for sure. Like both definitely have their place. And regarding my last question, so GraveDanger has mostly been DIY. Have you guys ever been signed to a label? Have you been in talks with any labels before?
Yeah, we were signed to Chaos Force Records in Portland, Oregon, way back in 2015, I believe.
Hmm.
And they put us on a compilation tape called Right Force Metal or something, Volume 1 or Volume 2. It's
Hmm.
been a while. It was for sale, I believe, on their website. There was a tape with about, I think it was anywhere from 12 to 15 bands on there. And they featured We're All in Grave Danger, or self-titled track. And that was
Nice.
pretty cool. But since then, we have been on another local, or not a local label, but we have been on another label in Sweden. The one Treazon was on, which was
Yeah.
Black Ritz Records from Sweden. The most beneficial thing you can get out of a label nowadays is them to press your CD, print T-shirts and merch for you, or promote you online.
Yeah.
Um, if you have a show, if the label wants to boast your sales for your tickets, that's pretty much all the labels can really do nowadays because
Yeah.
of again the corruption in the mainstream music scene, which has been going on since like something like 1996 or something like that. That was like the last time we had like a rock band, like a mainstream rock band, was around
Yeah.
that time.
Another thing with GraveDanger is I know you custom built a lot of your guitars. What is the exact process behind this, and why did you decide to do that over, buying factory produced guitars?
Well, let me just grab one of them really quick. Um, Personally,
Hmm.
I don't like spending anywhere from 2 to 4 thousand on a guitar. I know
Yeah.
Hazel has some amazing guitars nowadays. They always have, even since back when they were carving. And
Yeah.
also, there's Rip guitars. I believe it's in either Utah or Colorado. His guitars are freaking awesome. But for like the whole crackle look, I like to carve it in now because you
Yeah.
get the pattern you want.
For
Other
sure.
than just using like a lot of people use like the Montana crackle spray, but it doesn't matter how many times like you follow the instructions to the T, you're never going to get the pattern you want. And it's such a
Mm.
tedious process. So what I'll do is I'll do the crackle spray, and whatever comes out, but then I'll just carve in like the kind of look that I want. This one in particular, I followed the line on the crackle pattern, so it came out a little smaller. But let me show you another example. while we're talking about this. This one I put an even bigger pattern on, and it has a small pattern as well, the original pattern from the spray. And then I did holographic glitter on the back.
Nice.
And this one is similar, but it has like a two-tone thing where you can see how it has like a glitter on top here,
Yeah.
and then just the regular carve and crackle.
Yeah, it definitely has like a late 80s, early 90s type of vibe to it.
Yeah, I just, I would ultimately want to get like an original like crackled Charvel from like the 80s, but they're just way too expensive and they're really hard to find.
For
So
sure.
I'd rather just do it. I mean, I'd rather just do it myself.
And since we're on the topic of tone, what is it that you've used to record guitar with for the band's releases?
I have a B52 cab
Hmm.
and I have a PV Supreme solid state. It's an older one. And
Nice.
then I have a Korg Toneworks distortion board from the early 90s. And then I just run a chorus and a harmonizer. But for recording, I have like my plugins. So I'll use like either my plugins or I have like a Fender Mustang right here that I really like. And then I have like a Roland Cube that sounds even good on to mic up. So
Nice.
I'll switch around, whatever I feel like using that day.
Yeah, for sure. I get that because, the thing with guitar gear, especially amps, is there's just so many different options that it's kind of hard to stick to the same thing. Regarding guitar pickups, what is it that you use? Because I know you're building your guitars yourself, so
I use a DiMarzio Super Distortion rails
nice.
most of the time. But I have some lower end, like high gain pickups from guitarfetish.com. They're called like Crunchy Rails, Power Rails. Also, Dragonfire makes some good pickups, like 17K hot pickups. They're called like Dragonfire Screamers. I use some of those, and I have one in my Strat right here. It's my
Nice.
Ingve Strat I built. It's relict, so it looks beat up on purpose.
Yeah, I like the way you did that. And
Yeah, and then this is my I just picked this one up. I just scored this one. This is a late 80s, early 90s Aria Pro, and it has an original Roland synth on it.
nice. Have you
Yeah,
have you used that
yeah.
synth yet?
I haven't used it yet because I don't it's missing a cable.
Hmm.
So I got to figure out what cable it needs. I think it needs something different than a MIDI cable because the MIDI cable I have doesn't fit.
And so besides Frozen in Time, you guys got any of our shows coming up?
Yeah, we're actually going to be performing at the metal themed burger restaurant called Grill Them All.
Hmm.
They just opened up a location here in Long Beach on the beach. And I was out on the walk, funny story. And the owner came out and said, "Hey, are you Dominic?" And I said, "Yeah." And we got to talking. He recognized me from Instagram. And so now we're actually going to be performing there on May 10th, Friday.
Awesome.
It's going to be kind of a quieter kind of show because of the city and all that. There's like apartments locally.
So, for my last question before we do the send off, do you guys got any merch out? And also, where can people find you on social media?
Well, we do have some merch, but it's limited stock. I've sold over 100 t-shirts this past year.
Nice.
Here's our We're All in Grave Danger print.
Sick.
And then here's our other print, which is basically our band's mascot.
Is it
So,
supposed to be based off of you, or is it like an original character?
well, it's supposed to be an original character, but a lot of people just assume it's me. That's fine. I mean, we kind of tend to go for like a Mad Max, like
Yeah.
kind of like post-apocalyptic theme. So I think it works well with the band. We're on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp. We're on Metal Archives. And if you want a T-shirt or a sticker, send me a DM on Instagram, and we'll work something out.
Sick. All right, I'll be sure to put the links in the description below. Thank you for your time, Dominic. It was a
Yeah,
great
thanks a lot
interview.
for having me, Dylan.